And we are live. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for watching this edition of the Bread for Soul Convos with myself, Sir LSG. And today I have a special guest. I mean, all of my guests are really special. Let's be honest, guys. Let's just be honest. And I'm speaking to Ricardo da Costa, who somebody who studied marketing. I didn't know this about him, and I'll ask him if he actually finished or he failed like the rest of us. He's a former label manager at Soul Candy, a partner at Altitude Beach Club, and as well as Ivy Champagne Garden, and also the head of Spring Fiesta and so many other events, Electric Circus, and a partner at H2O events as well. And Ricardo wears so many hats, and it will be simply impossible to fit everything into an hour. We will try, but what we will do is we'll jump in between different topics to try and at least have a glimpse of this genius that is Ricardo da Costa. Thank you so much, sir. How are you?
What's up, Olusejo? You good?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for doing this and for spending your time.
Thanks for having me, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, man. I wanna get into um, before we start a new feature of the show. Actually, we'll get into that. But before we start, I just want to say, for me, this is particularly an important episode. Having you here, from Soul Candy side. Soul Candy for me, it has played it's a very important role in my career, both as a DJ and as a producer, because at the very beginning, the way I started, if I could share the story with people, the way I started in 2006, I was a first year student at WITS, which obviously didn't work that well eventually. But I remember going to Rosebank, and as you walk the old Rosebank by where is now the Gau train, the KFC is on your left, and to your right was where Soul Candy was, and you just walk down staircase. The logo was there, and I remember seeing the logo. This was me before I could even DJ, and just seeing that logo that has had so many a couple of releases with DJ Buso and Harel as well, and just sparked something inside me. That was the beginning of my DJing career, but the beginning of my producer career started at Soul Candy as well, because I attended at the Soul Candy Institute of Music, being taught by Ntlantla Kumalo, who now is the head of the Durban branch of the school, as well as Pule. But so I just wanted to let it out there, brother. Thank you so much, and it's such a, that's how important this talk is for me. And Rick, when I met you, um, I mean, for the most part, we will talk about Spring Fiesta, because I want people to learn how and to see really how what goes into doing and creating an event like this. But we should get into the other two things that you do, like your events and your restaurants. You've got the Ivy Champagne Garden, and you also have Altitude Beach Club, which is an amazing venue, I must say. But I think a good point to start is Soul Candy. Um, the roles of the compilations that Soul Candy played, it's there, it's in our face. But I want to know from you: were you guys ever surprised at the success, or was it just because you guys are geniuses that you are?
Firstly, I actually didn't know that you came through the Soul Candy Institute of Music, which is an amazing testimonial for us to have, such a talented producer, and look at what you've gone on to achieve yourself. So that's a at least a testament to us to know that we're doing something right in that respect. So kudos to you too, man. With regards to Soul Candy, sometimes when you don't really have expectations, of achieving great things, you Soul Candy was always driven by passion. I joined in late 2005, beginning of 2006, and Harel, which is one of the original founders, really made an offer to me that really, you know, solidified my commitment to the brand. You know, he gave me equity in the business, and I was so all in terms of the things that I wanted to achieve with the brand, and where we as a collective wanted to take the brand. And it was all driven by passion. I mean, driven by DJs, obviously, but you know, we were so obsessed and consumed with uh, you know, this industry that we were in, that we just wanted to do it at the highest level every single day. You know, starting off with the record store, you know, wanting to bring in, you know, the best, most upfront tracks and break them before anyone else did. And when that grew into a record label, you know, the same sort of philosophy applied to that, where we wanted to be the ones that had, you know, those big tracks on our album, and break those songs and cross pollinate that to radio and make sure that people knew that that song was featured on our albums. So we were really, and I use the word obsessed because there's no other way for me to describe it. We were absolutely consumed with it, and it wasn't work for us. It wasn't it. None of us that worked at Soul Candy really woke up any day and thought, geez, okay, it's a Monday now, we've got to get to work and whatever. I mean, even though Mondays are not the best days for DJs and producers, um, you know, we were really living the dream, as cliched as that sounds. So I think that um, sort of energy is representative of how we were able to take, you know, a small record store in Rosebank to, you know, a renowned record label synonymous with house music. And, you know, fast forward to today, even though we're not a record label today, it doesn't mean to say that we're not going to be a record label tomorrow. We made a decision to stop being a record label because the changes in the music industry were so vast. And before it was too late, or before we started to lose money in the record label, we made a decision to say, cool, well, you know, we're having to manage a lot of artist expectations. And, you know, you understand what that's like sometimes. It's like, you know, music videos and, you know, all sorts of crazy stuff like that. And we were like, you know, it was becoming really difficult to manage their expectations and still run a profitable business. So we wanted to quit while we were ahead and use maybe a term that's not so permanent and say we wanted to park the bus. And, you know, it was probably the best decision, and a difficult decision because we were very emotionally. I mean, think about what I've just told you in terms of how we were driven and motivated every day, you know, to get up and to find the best music and put the best albums out. Um, it was a very difficult decision because it was so emotionally charged for us. But we, you know, we came to a meeting of the minds, and we, you know, looking back, we are so thankful that, you know, we managed to navigate those difficult decisions, and we decided to park the bus because for our business model, it just, there was better uses of our time than trying to make money off selling music. Because as we know, you know, selling music is just a very small line item now for artists and DJs that produce their own music. That is in terms of revenue. You know, it's music is a business card. That's what it is. It's a business card for producers to get more gigs, to get more shows. So, you know, I think we made a good decision, and we focused on the other businesses, which is still very much centered around what we do and what the essence of the brand is. Which was eventing, which we had started some time before we stopped being a record label, and the school, which is, you know, is a key part of our strategy now. And then we use our fan base as a community to promote all things house music.
Sure, sure. And I'm glad that you touched on that Soul Candy. It does not mean that it might not come back in future as a label. Things change so rapidly, and anything can happen. Because I was about to ask that question, but I wanna get into this story of Mikasa because I truly love seeing artists progressing with their careers. And when you look at the Mikasa story and where they are right now and where they started and how quick it all happened, and I assume, not assume, but I know that you were part of one of the most influential members of that team to create that. How did the band itself, how was the band put together, and how did you guys really work Mikasa into breaking the scene?
You know, as much as we would like to take credit for actually creating them, I think it was a very organic thing that happened. Duda was one of our DJs, producers that we were doing a lot of stuff with. Uh, Jay something at the time was recording a gospel album that was being co-produced by RJ Benjamin. Uh, and Mo's brother, Chaps, used to work for us. So all these components were kind of in front of us, and we used to do an event at the Radisson Blue in Santon by the car train. It was La Dolce Vita events, and we we had Duda performing, and Jay said to him, "Look, why don't I jump on and sing over one of the tracks, just like a cappella over the tracks." Um, and that sparked, like, they did a song, and Mo was there too, and he had his trumpet in his car, and he went and got his trumpet, and they jammed a freestyle, and there was so much cohesion, and the reception was so electric. It's no other way to describe it. That very next week, they got together and they said, "Cool, should we give this thing a go? And what are we going to call ourselves?" And I think it was Jay who came up with the name Mikasa, and they loved it. And 6 weeks later, they had their first album. And I mean, as a producer, when the juices are there and you're in the zone and everything is just working, and it just, you can crack out an album. If the influence is there, I mean, all it takes is discipline, and you can knock out an album pretty quickly. And yeah, man, that was the birth of Soul Candy's first golden egg as a band. And I use the phrase golden egg because, I mean, literally everything that they did, it was just so well received. Their story was embraced. Their music just spoke to people, more importantly, and they slowly started to build their craft. And all we were was a conduit to manage this golden egg, this beautiful creation that came together organically. But we had some very difficult learnings with them too. And a lot of people probably don't know this, but we had little experience in terms of managing a band. And I mean, we did their bookings. It was a 360 sort of play with Mikasa, and there was so much demand for their bookings and performances that we were touring them like they were DJs. So we were booking them like 7 gigs in a weekend. And as a band, and especially as a vocalist, you can't do that. It puts so much strain on the voice of the singers.
The trumpeter
In this
too, I
case, the
assume.
lead singer, and the drum. Sure,
Mm.
I mean, Mo pushed through on it, but Jay got sick at one time, and his voice. I mean, I think he had laryngitis, and just his voice was so heavily strained that we had to cancel probably close to R1 million worth of gigs. Now, think about this. At the time of being a new band, they weren't even a year old. And I mean, they were already, I mean, the demand was just insane from corporates to clubs to whatever it was. And we had to cancel these gigs. And it was the biggest learning curve for us. And ultimately, I'm glad we went through it. It's never nice to be to the detriment of something, but we learned a lot about that. So, we it was swings and roundabouts. There was, we created amazing memories and fantastic albums, but we had some challenging, turbulent moments as well with the band. And we're very proud of, what they've become, how they've grown. I mean, they've been through some transitional sort of phases in the industry from a sound point of view and where musically things are at and whatever. But I think ultimately they adapt very well. And their new album now, which Universal's just signed, is so good, man. It's being there from the very beginning and seeing how they've come to this point and hearing that they can still be so inspired and produce such great music is really something that's pretty special. So yeah, man, they definitely one of our key sort of milestones as a record label.
Mm. And I guess I'm glad that you guys were there. As much as anybody, like, there's a lot of talent out there, and you will agree that we've got an overload of talent in South Africa especially, but sometimes it does take that partnership between talent management and people who can really take the talent to the next level for this talent to really become what it can be, you know what I mean? And I'm really glad that Soul Candy played that role. I've got a voice note for you from somebody who also came through the ranks of Soul Candy and is in his own right a powerhouse. Let's have a listen.
Yo, the first time I met Ricardo da Costa, I was selling records to Harrell in Rosebank. I used to work for a distribution company called Curse Music, and we used to bring in some house records from time to time that were of interest to Soul Candy. And I'd go into Soul Candy's offices, and Harrell was sitting in the corner smoking cigarettes and telling everyone what to do. And next to him was this infamous Ricardo da Costa, and I got to know him a little bit then. But then I ended up joining Soul Candy, but distribution side, not so much the label side. And I learned very quickly how things ran with the label. And there was Brett Jackson and Ricardo da Costa, and they ran the music and the A&Ring and everything that Soul Candy needed. And Ricardo was a powerhouse and still is. He was very kind of committed to finding the big tunes. He found a lot of music that did really, really well and A&R'd and put together a lot of the Soul Candy's hits in the day. And unfortunately, Brett Jackson passed away, and they looked to me to replace him, which was a very, very difficult job because Brett was without a doubt the man for the job. He was such a house music fan and such a great DJ. And I was kind of like, I liked house music, but it wasn't my everything. And I took the job on basically just to learn the music industry. And I got thrown very deep into the waters of Soul Candy, the music business. And I had to learn very quickly. And Ricardo helped me at the beginning, introduced me to all the big players, Ganyani and Fresh and Euphonic and everyone. And slowly but surely, I began swimming in these deep waters. And yeah, just, Ricardo is he's without a doubt a legend in the South African house music scene. And, he's still at the forefront of music with his events, with Altitude, with Spring Fiesta. So yeah, definitely a force to be reckoned with, and someone that has done a lot for dance music in South Africa. So yeah, that's a few minutes and a few words of my thoughts on Ricardo da Costa coming from Kid Funk.
Yeah, man. Do you have
Very
anything?
cool, man.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
And
no, um, he, it's also just amazing to see, you know, from where we were, and it's not surprising. Let me tell you, it's not surprising at all to see what he's been able to achieve. And besides the talent that he has, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And there's so little ego in a very egocentric um, industry, and it's just all about the love for the music with him, and he's got such an incredible ear, and he's been able to build his own stable, which the music that's coming out of Stay True is power, man. It's the radio show is representative of exactly what he loves musically, and what an awesome opportunity to have a national radio show where you can do what you want without being told to play or whatever. I mean,
yeah,
that fits so perfectly into him and his persona, and yeah, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. He's an incredible dad. um, that's one thing that when you get to know him personally, you get to see how much he loves his family, and you can just see that enthusiasm cross pollinate into his work and the releases that he's putting out. So big ups to him, man. Yeah, and
yeah.
thanks for the kind words.
Cool, cool. Before we get into your two restaurants, I wanna just ask people to get involved with the show, and the way to do that, we've got a question to everyone. What do you miss the most about the show, about the groove, about going out, about partying? So that's to you who's watching this. What Let us know, what is it that you miss the most about groove, and put your answers in the comment sections, and we'll try and get those answers and play them at the end of the show. So Rick, I want to get into altitude. You've opened up the two restaurants, and very beautiful venues, bro. And what are the differences between somebody, like between running an event, which is kind of like a once-off thing, but it's still a massive production, and running a day-to-day venue, restaurant, people coming in, eating, alcohol, everything. What are the key differences between the two? Because I assume, like, many people see venues, like, we don't really know what goes into running a venue and sustaining the venue. But what are those differences?
There are surprisingly a lot of parallels between running events and restaurants and venues. Ultimately, it's hosting people, patrons, customers. It's about putting on a safe experience. um, you know there's food at festivals too. You know what I mean? It's obviously not a driving force or the core objective of the festival, or depending on what kind of festival it is, but mine specifically, it's not. But you know the one aspect of what I had to learn was running a kitchen, and just the critical path and the ops related to that. But I'm a foodie. I love food. So the enthusiasm was there to learn, but from uh, general ops, marketing, um, of the restaurant versus an event, there's a lot of parallels. So it wasn't that difficult for me to slot into it. And how I came about to own a restaurant. I mean, if you had asked me 4 years ago, would I be owning a restaurant, I probably would have laughed at you. But I had a good friend of mine who comes from the restaurant industry. His name's Damien Michael. Um, Unfortunately, he actually recently passed away from a battle with cancer. So, um, you know, it, he had approached me, uh, and he said, "Look, would you be keen on opening something?" Now, when he approached me about it, I thought, does he want to open up a club? I mean, why is he talking to me? and I had no desire of opening up a nightclub. So we got chatting, and there was a site that he had in mind that was offered to him in Bedford View, and we went to go have a look at the site, which was still a construction site at the time, and I fell in love with the space like you can't believe. It just was one of those things that just spoke to me. So very shortly after that, we just had a discussion to say, well, where's your thinking at? Where's my thinking at? And like it was like a glove, man. It just, our thinking was aligned, and we gave birth to the Ivy Champagne Garden, which is a rooftop venue in Bedford View, and it's a restaurant social space that has music as a key component to it, but it's not the driving force. So I mean, it's a beautiful rooftop venue that has the most incredible views of the Joburg skyline. But I didn't believe that the business model to approach was to have a venue that's driven by music and DJs and entertainment, and have food be the byproduct of it. I wanted it to be the other way around, where you come and have an amazing meal with the most incredible views, but you have this incredible music just binding everything together. And my gut was right, that it's became, and it showed us that it's a far more sustainable business model for that space to be that. And we in our third year, actually 2 years in, 2.5 years, approaching 3 years, and it's been a very enjoyable process and a very rewarding process. So there are a lot of parallels with running a venue, a restaurant, and running events. It's just that with the food side and the quality and understanding plating, and that's the one side that I've had to really jump into, but not that foreign. When you look at a venue like Altitude Beach, which is a beach club, it's a day club, but with a restaurant being a big focus of it, our approach with that was, look, okay, we've got this amazing space which is 3,200 squares, our capacity is 2,000 people. How do we make this space come to life where we're not pressured to have 2,000 people in there every single week, and that 500 people can have a good time in there too? So we created spaces and areas within the venue that it wasn't intimidating when it wasn't packed. So the restaurant became a key driver to that. And we created a second space, which was a sushi and oyster section. So we had the main restaurant, the sushi and oyster section, and then we had the beach club aspect, which has a dance floor and a bar area and whatever. And we have this beautiful pool in the middle. And ultimately, it was inspired by beach clubs from around the world. So, there's Ushuaia and Nikki Beach, and all these beach clubs in Dubai and Miami and Bali were all inspiration for us in putting that together. And we felt, yes, there isn't a beach in Joburg, but it's about creating a theme that's linked to what a beach club represents. And if you've been to a beach club, overseas, or even in South Africa, there's Shimmy Beach, which is a beach club. I mean, they're at the beach in its literal sense, but they're a restaurant, they're a venue, and they're a beach club. And so we definitely were playing on that theme in a beautiful space in the north of Johannesburg in Fourways. And we launched November last year. And it's exceeded our expectations, man. It's really done so well. We've learned a lot since we've opened, and unfortunately now being forced to close. But it's a really special venue that has a lot of layers to it, and we haven't even started, man. We've got so many amazing concepts and ideas and plans that we're going to roll out with when this whole COVID thing comes to an end.
And I just want to touch a bit onto that because I know you recently did an interview. It's up on YouTube. People can look it up. And in that interview, you extensively went into the effects of COVID and the lockdown and how difficult it has been, and I think it's important for people to check that out. But I want to ask you with regards to that, how far ahead can you realistically plan, this period, as we see the stages getting, lockdown getting lifted, but we're not really sure about the eventing space. The government isn't sure, definitely. But how far ahead can you plan? And also, I want to ask you about deliveries. I know, Ivy, you started opening up for food deliveries, but alcohol is starting to get sold next week. Will you be doing those deliveries as well?
So yes, to answer your first part of your question, I only see things getting back to normal in its original sense, in terms of how things were, when we have a vaccine. That's what I truly believe. I think um, maybe they will take a different approach and assess that, the death rate and the recovery rate far and the recovery rate far outweighs the death rate. That you can't shut an economy because of it, and they'll put some measures in place that will allow us to get to normality to some degree. But at festivals and mass gatherings and sporting events that have crowds and fans, I think if we are super lucky, I think New Year's Eve we'll be able to do something. But I think there will be this gradual, staggered approach where there'll be limited gatherings. Maybe we'll be able to open altitude in October, November, depending on where we're at in the stages. But it's the kind of venue that doesn't really lend itself to do takeaway. I mean, it's a big operation. So to open takeaways, and that is a little bit more of a difficult business model, which takeaways on its own is not sustainable. I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, I'm losing money by doing takeaways, but the other side of that coin is that I'm able to at least keep the machine going and help my staff, because they're my responsibility too. And if I close my doors, it's not like I will have, well, if I just don't open, not so much close my doors, because that's not in my plans at all, but I still have expenses that I've got to pay. So and I've got insurances, I'll probably have to pay rental to some degree. So I'm going to give and continue to give this takeaway story a go, but it's not a sustainable part of the business. It really isn't. So I'm doing it for my staff, but if we're lucky, if we are super lucky, I think December to some degree will be salvaged. But if you take a realistic approach, maybe February they'll say, cool, everything back to normal.
Cool. Yeah, I hope we get back into those spaces as quick as possible. Obviously, health does come first, and we just need to learn on how to deal and operate during this new normal. But
Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned that what you're doing for your staff. I think it's commendable, and I think a lot of people, sometimes we don't really give credit to the bosses, who employ families, who employ people, but really employ families. So what you do, you're not only doing for a barman, you're also doing for the barman and his family and what he can do for his family. But you yourself are also a family man. How are you mentally dealing with this period? Are you going to therapy, or what are you doing?
Listen, I mean, to take positive out of a very murky situation, the time that I've been able to spend with my family, you can't even quantify. It's been pretty special, and something that only if you have been forced to do it would you do it. Because I mean, we've got careers, we've got businesses that we run. There's no way that unless you're on a vacation, but which entrepreneur can take a 2-month vacation? You know what I mean? It's unheard of. So this time with my family has been incredible. Bonding with my kids and my wife, and but it comes a time where the stress really starts to creep in, and as an entrepreneur, you just are, and in my case, the breadwinner. There's a massive responsibility to get back out there and hustle and get some money in, because at the moment there's far more money going out than coming in. So I am part of a few entrepreneurial committees where it's more peer-to-peer support in difficult times, partners, that kind of thing. I've stayed extremely motivated, even though it's been frustrating and the goalposts keep on moving, which is very frustrating. I mean, you can sit and forward plan and but if they keep on pushing things out, it becomes a bit deflating. But I haven't lost sight of my businesses, the fact that we will come back, and I've really spent a great deal of my time just trying to box smart, just trying to minimize expenditure, trying to keep money in the bank, trying to compromise with landlords and that kind of thing, because we're all in this together, and try to come to middle grounds with everything regarding business, just to make sure that we can stay afloat. And then, when things are ready to get switched on, then we're ready, that we're not scrambling when they say cool, businesses are ready to go. So I haven't stopped working, man. It's even in the downtime where it's been a bit difficult with kids and whatever, I've been thinking about my events. I mean, this year was supposed to be 10 years of Spring Fiesta, a 10-year anniversary. Okay. 21 years of H2O. I mean, there was some significant things that we had planned for this year. And to think that that it's not going to be happening is, it's very devastating. But we move it to next year, and it gives us more time to plan. And you got to find the silver lining with everything, and that's what I try to do. It doesn't help to just throw your hands up and complain. You've actually just got to try and put your head down and find angles and opportunities, and that's what I've been doing. Every day I'm busy with something, and I must admit, the opportunity that it's opened up is for me to get more involved in Soul Candy, and there's some exciting things that we're working on, which I don't know if it would have happened in this way if COVID wouldn't have come and we wouldn't have been forced in this position. So you got to take the good with the bad, but I'm still very headstrong and hopeful that we'll get back to things soon.
I think myself as well. I mean, all DJs, everybody's affected. DJs, venues, everyone is affected, and I'm also trying to keep my head up. And luckily for this show, I think I took a stance to use this time positively to influence and empower other people, share knowledge and experiences. And I'm glad to have people like you as guests who are willing to do this and spend their time with us, and I'm really grateful for that. But I want to segue into a thing. So on Monday, every first Monday of the month, we will be hosting our resident psychiatrist, Dr. Gwen Tonyani, on what we call Mental Health Mondays. So if you're watching this, please tune in on Monday. We'll talk about depression for artists. We talk about just mental issues, how best we can deal with mental issues, especially as artists. So look into that. And Rick, we've got about, I think, 20-25 minutes to get into Spring Fiesta, which is an hour on its own. Should have a show for its own. But I want to get to know what really informs the artists, how you and your team choose who plays on Spring Fiesta in a certain year.
So it's I do have like an informal board, if you want to call it that, of people that I bounce ideas off. In terms of how we get to the lineups. One of the things that I chose to do very early on is to give certain DJs and artists the opportunity to host their own floors, and that really uh, gave me an opportunity to feed off other other perspectives and people's thinking, because to have the bald white guy sitting behind the desk trying to pick what the most relevant artists are in urban culture was just like I needed help, and this has been from day one. I've always tried to get the best insight and info
Three
in
of
terms
them.
of who's relevant.
Three.
I mean, each year there is a
We
level
need
of
three.
new artists and guys that are making waves that get introduced into the whole thing. And what I'm still very happy and proud about is that we've maintained a majority house music foundation in terms of the festival. That is at its core. That is what we are, and it's what we'll always be. And despite influences in music and how it goes left and right, and how hip hop is the thing, and then it goes away, and now piano is the thing, and we've adapted, we've adjusted things without compromising the essence of what we are. And I think that we've generally been very consistent at the same time while growing the experience. So yeah, it's definitely not something that I do alone, man. It's a very big undertaking, which I lean on quite a few people's insights.
Yeah, and a lot of events have definitely got the hang of sound and the sound system for an event. I mean, let me not say a lot. I mean, some have not gotten to that, but certainly most events have gotten to a way of at least having a decent sound system. But what I love and most about Spring Fiesta is the production, the visual element of it. And I want to ask you about one particular thing. From the top of my mind, I remember this butterfly thing, LED thing. That's like so amazing. It looks huge, but it's really really dope. But what informs or how do you guys decide on the visual element of the show?
So one of the key things that I go to bed at night is production. Um, and it's one thing booking all the names and love just in a different order, because we know that there's come springtime, there's a million festivals and everyone's kind of booking a lot of the similar guys and whatever. I think there's some significant things that set us apart from some of the other festivals. One, we have multiple stages that focus on each genre instead of having 10 genres on one floor with 15-minute sets, and it's just this it works for some. I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's just, for me, it doesn't make it doesn't map out the story properly when you're having these 15-minute sets. I mean, how can a DJ play 20 minutes and leave? It's just there's something fundamentally wrong with that, and it's happening. So that's one thing that sets us apart, is that that we're able to have all these flaws. But I believe that we've worked hard to really set ourselves apart from a lot of the other festivals that are happening from a production standpoint. And to your point, the butterfly is part of our logo, and we wanted to create a wow factor in the main stage, to say, well, instead of just doing LEDs everywhere and changing the panels and whatever, what can we do that's progressive and will really give people a sense of like, wow. So about 4 years ago, we introduced a video mapping butterfly, which again, representative of our logo. And the head of my production team is a guy by the name of Craig Shackleton, who's been part of the Soul Candy family for many, many years. He actually helped start the Soul Candy Institute of Music way back when. And he's always been part of the family, and he lives in Cape Town. And he was one of the first people to undertake video mapping. And video mapping was a thing that I think probably came into the scene, I think maybe 15 years ago. And he really embraced the technology and understood it and mastered it. And we've always worked with him from a visual standpoint, because he produces his own visuals and graphics and that kind of thing. And we had a brainstorm, and we're like, what can we do? He says, why don't we build a stage design that's centered around a video mapping experience? And by this time, video mapping, had been around in many shapes and forms, but very little in the eventing space, especially the festival space. And, we had this 27-meter high, 37-meter long butterfly created, which cost a lot of money. And we put it together, and, we're like, okay, well, video mapping really comes to life at night. What's going to happen during the day? And it's like, we had some LED there to keep it going, but it was more about looking at this butterfly during the day and saying, well, what's going to happen with this thing?
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, okay, what's going to happen? When does whatever? And at night, when it came on, people really embraced the effect that it had. It's like, wow. We had this one effect that made the wings ripple, that made it seem like it's flapping its wings. So the first time we did it was great. It had an incredible impact. The learnings that I got from the first time we did it was that we needed to develop more content, because you can only have so many times where you do the flapping of the wings until it becomes a bit of an overused sort of content footage. So when we did it last year, we put a lot of our budget into producing more content and effects on the butterfly. We changed the butterfly. It was a completely new butterfly. The butterfly was facing down, like it was flying down, as opposed to standing up straight, which is not a natural way for a butterfly to stand up. And all the things that we learned from the first time we did it, we applied, and it really amplified the whole effect. And we even mapped eyes on the butterfly, and the eyes were looking at everyone. So we had these like eyes looking at the crowd, and it was really also good for sponsors. We were able to use that as a canvas to promote the brands that got involved in the venue, which they really they loved, and they'd never been involved or seen anything like that. So it's always good, a feather in the cap when an idea comes together and it's well received, and you improve on it, and the people who invest in your brand, it has the kind of effect that will make them come back and support your event in years to come.
Yeah. Man, I think with regards to Spring Fiesta, like I said, there's so much to unpack, and I would like to really, really teach people, how they can build an event of this magnitude, in step by step. So I hope you would agree to us doing kind of like a part 2, even if it's like in the next 2 months or something like that, just to unpack some of those factors. You know what I mean?
No, I'd love to. Listen, if I could put some things out there to make sure people don't make the same mistakes I did, and I can share what works for me, and it's not to say that it's the gospel and that's if you apply it, it will work. I mean, there's a lot of other components that go into, developing a successful event. But I'd be absolutely happy to.
Cool. Thank you so much. I've got another voice note here from another collaborator in Spring Fiesta, and let's get to that quickly.
Cool.
Yeah, Ricardo da Costa. Wow, like so many years of work, a few years of working under him, and a memory of him firing me to go do my thing and still working with me. So we've worked for so many years together, and what a passionate businessman, what a focused businessman, very innovative in his outlook, and literally cares about the business of entertainment. And as you can see, all the businesses that he has brought up in the entertainment industry that have benefited many, many artists and creatives. So many, yeah, that's like my brother, that's like my confidant, that's like someone I rely on, even Jay, on bad times and good times. So he's introduced me to a whole lot of platforms within the entertainment industry, and I'm very grateful for him. So yeah, shout out Ricardo da Costa. Love you, bro. You know.
Yeah, that is
Mike Larry.
Mike. Yeah. So that was Lulu. But just to get, I want to jump to the end of production. So, when you've just had an awesome show on Saturday, people are going mad. People are on social media, hungover, talking about how dope Spring Fiesta was, and you and your team are maybe happy about or unhappy about a few things. But what goes on after the event for you? Is it just that holiday where you just like fuck everything, I'm going away, or what goes on after having such a massive pulling off such a massive production?
Look, there's definitely a few days where you just need to, charge the batteries, but there's so much work that needs to happen after the fact, and from putting together reports for your sponsors to reconning the actual event. I mean, putting together the after movie. It's the work doesn't stop from after the event, and it's Spring Fiesta takes me 1 year to plan, literally a full year to plan and get the lineup right and think of the production ideas and roll out with the marketing schedule. But there is a responsibility that you have in terms of giving a people a sense of the product that was just executed, and the sponsors, and letting them know what the final attendance was, how much alcohol we sold, and there's a couple of ways to assess the success or failure of an event. Obviously, profit is the number one result of the event. But when you create a property and an experience that has a significant impact in people, patrons, and when you see loyal patrons come back year on year, there's no amount of money that replaces that void. It's why we do it. You don't just do events for money, or else you wouldn't see the little details and the passion for the production and the curation of the lineup to make sure that the story makes sense, and the sound system and the marketing. If you weren't passionate about that, and it was just about money, you wouldn't really see the quality of product that you see in some of the events out there. So, for me, it's yes, we do it for money, but there's a lot of work that goes into things after the event to make sure that you can still keep the machine going, and that requires reporting back to sponsors, reconning the event, and that takes quite a bit of time.
And I want to get a bit political here with regards to Spring Fiesta. What do you, besides the main stage, right? Which stage do you think is people's favorite stage?
So the deep house stage is, if you look at the feedback, the receptiveness, the engagement, uh, let's just say on social media, even though the main stage is the busier stage and the more popular stage, the feedback and the passion all comes from the deep house stage, the What About Soul stage. It it it's the first stage to get full. We open the doors at 12, and it's the first stage that gets full. Like from the first DJ. So the opening DJ, believe me, it's not like he's paying to no one. There's people in front of him from the get-go. Um, and it just it progresses, and by 2 p.m. it's full. And it's a beautiful thing to see, because it's all about the music. It's all about the music, man. It's not about the production. I mean, I put a decent production on the deep house stage, but I focus on an amazing sound system, and that's really all you need. And we've moved the position of the deep house stage over the years, and I think it's found its new home now. And like I said, Spring Fiesta is always going to be a house music festival, and very few festivals these days have a deep house stage dedicated to deep house, and it's more the hip hop and the piano. And even though piano is has a lot of cross pollination to deep house, at its core, uh, you know deep house is still the driving force of Spring Fiesta.
Yeah, I'm glad you answered that exactly how I wanted. Um, because I wanted to ask you, man, like, could we ever see like what about Soul tour, of this of Spring Fiesta, just on a tour? Because I think it's such a massive thing. It's like you say, it's driven by passion. Could we ever see such a thing?
Yeah, I think it's very possible. The thing with events now, it's so difficult to do lots of different events, because there's so many other things going on. Um, you know, and my philosophy on events, and that will be for our part two session. I don't do events without sponsorship. I do not. I've paid way too many school fees to to know that even though I know that it would work, there's still costs and things need to balance itself out. So I would never do an event without sponsorship. So my strategy now is to focus on the properties that I have and making sure that I can get the best out of them. And I feel that when the industry is ready for it, I think it's all possible. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Okay, great. Guys, you heard it. I initiated that idea. I shall be Lulu's partner there or something, a supporting act, opening act or something. But I want to get into a feature that I call Explain the Gram. And do you have your phone with you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm dropping you a WhatsApp. Let me know what's happening in that picture I've just sent you now.
So that picture is the beginning phases of Altitude Beach. It's I mean, that view that you see is the view from the DJ box at Altitude Beach. So you've got a 250 square meter pool, and what will become our sushi and oyster bar to the right of it. To the left of it, there's a bar, and directly opposite it is our main restaurant. So that is the birth of Altitude Beach.
Beautiful, bro. Beautiful. I've got another one. I didn't. I knew that you were a golfer, but I never knew that you would be a soccer fan. Explain that picture.
So I am a super soccer fan. Super. I was born in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, and I am fanatical about the national Brazilian side. I'm so patriotic and so passionate about soccer that I've only had one real side that I've supported my whole life, which is Barcelona. But the main reason I supported Barcelona is because all the Brazilian players would always go to Barcelona. And I adopted that philosophy, and I only supported sides that had Brazilian players. And that's kind of how I've watched football outside of supporting Barcelona is, I support Liverpool. At one point, I liked Chelsea a lot. Um, at Real Madrid, I watched a lot because they had quite a few Brazilians, but I was always drawn back to Barcelona. PSG because of Neymar. So that picture is me getting a Brazilian top signed by Hulk, which they were here uh, as an exhibition game before the World Cup to play South Africa, which they beat South Africa 5-1. And I had met Hulk, I had met Oscar, I had met David Luiz, I had met Julio Cesar, the keeper, and I nearly met Neymar, but he ran past. He didn't want to sign anything and whatever. Like I almost like stretched out and try and grab him, but he ran right past. And yeah, I'm a very passionate soccer fan, and I'm very passionate about the Brazilian national side.
Damn, I think I would have grabbed him by by his shirt. I would have pulled him, probably gotten
He
arrested.
literally ran past, man. I couldn't, like, he ran right past me, and I was like, I didn't want to be that guy because it's a bit creepy, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So just one last quick pick that I'm sending to you now. If you love, if
Oh
you're good at
wow.
something, never do it for free, right?
Yes. Yeah, so that was a fancy dress party that myself and my wife went to, which we actually won best dress. And yeah, I forget the movie now. It was my wife's idea to dress up like this,
The
but
Joker, the Joker.
yeah, well, it was representative of the Joker
Oh yes, 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 yes. I forgot that movie.
in that movie, and she's a character in in
Oh
that movie
yes.
as well. I mean, the name will come to me, but we actually won best dress at that particular party. So yeah,
You had to win, bro. I
I
mean,
don't
look at
know.
that.
Yeah, I don't know how many bald jokers there's been, but listen, I try to do my part.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just want to get into these. Where are the answers? Anyway, I wanted to say to you that Rick, bro, you are only 41 years old this year, and I have no doubt we've got about 60 plus more years for you to give us great events. I don't think the current situation should be putting you at all into despair. But I just want to say, the future is much more better and bigger than what we've seen, I believe.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you, and I'm I'm as motivated as ever before. It doesn't mean to say I'm not frustrated because I certainly am. But I appreciate those kind words, man. I've got big plans still. We're gonna have the Spring Fiesta 10-year anniversary. We've got a plan to do a documentary. I've got, still lots of other ideas for other events. Altitude Beach, we're going to be doing some incredible stuff there too. Um, you know, Still continue to drive my restaurants forward, and who knows what other opportunities come up. And one thing that I can say is, you know, next year is going to be 20 years. I think it's our 20-year anniversary of Soul Candy. So yes, it actually is. It's our 20-year anniversary of Soul Candy. So uh, look out for some big things, man. We're having some really good, exciting discussions, and yeah, I think we're gonna be surprising some people.
Cool. That's dope to hear. I just want to get through some questions from people, or like rather comments of what they miss about the groove. Mickey SA
Yeah.
says, "What I miss about the groove is definitely the environment. Nothing beats communication, connecting, and making memories." And I want to get to the second one with Sanele Kumede say, "I miss waking up and asking myself how I got home because the groove was just too lit." I loved it. I loved it so much. And last one from Soul Deep says, "The energy from the DJ is seeing him or her enjoying what they love, which is what I love, which is music, and above all, sharing that moment with like minded people." What do you miss most about the groove, bruh?
You know, I personally miss playing music to people and seeing and just the energy of the dance floor. You know, I mean, I wasn't really focusing on my DJing career. I wasn't driving it as a major strategy. I still played every weekend, and I'm still very passionate about it. But when you don't play music to a room of people that are totally focused and engaged with what you're trying to do in terms of creating your story musically, um, is something that I don't think in my 80s I'll get sick of. And uh, not doing it for 2 months. I haven't even done a live stream yet, which I've got a few proposals that I've accepted that I'm going to do it. But uh, I think streams are, not it doesn't really fill the same void in terms of the reactions and the receptiveness to what you get when you're playing in, music to people. But I really do miss that, man. You know, the mood that you create with good music is an infectious feeling that yeah, it's like falling in love, man. It's like falling in love all over again. That's what I miss.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, I think we can pack it here, and for hoping for the next part two on Spring Fiesta in a couple of weeks or months. But thank you so much, Rick. You know, you've done so much for the scene, and for what we have in our house music scene. And to have somebody who's passionate about house music like that, pushing it at those levels of especially eventing, it's really something amazing, bro. I really appreciate it. I just want to say thank you for spending your time with us.
No, thank you for having me, man. This is a great platform. I think, in current times, it's you're not going to get people's attention more than you have it now. And to start something like this, the sky's the limit for this kind of platform. And you know, kudos to you again, man, and well done.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having me.
Thank you so much, bro. And yeah, to everyone who's watching, thank you for tuning in. Please share the video. Please tag somebody in the comment section who might learn from it. And let's always remember to be creative and stay creative. Have a good weekend, guys.